One of the things that is on top of everyone's mind, especially Democrats, is this redistricting effort that we're seeing, Trump sort of have Republicans take on in Texas and other states. I want to just sort of kick off because I'm sure you hear this all the time, and I noticed it as well, that there's so many voices that always seem to say Democrats need to do something. And often some of the loudest people saying that don't actually know the actions the DNC and Democrats across the country are taking. So, how are Democrats fighting back in this moment?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. And for some context, I'm like always in my car because we're always going somewhere. I'm trying to do the hard work in this moment to have and build the type of party that can meet the existential crisis that we're all in. I think, like, let's make no bones about it. We have an authoritarian in the White House who is every single day chipping away at the fundamental building blocks of what makes America America, the rule of law, the idea that people are free to speak their mind without the government trying to shut down comedians or individuals for telling a joke. So first and foremost, I'm really damn proud of the local leaders across Texas, reps who are standing up at great risk to themselves, to their families, to their careers, to their safety. All of us should be really infuriated, frankly, that they need to do this in the first place, that you have a government in Texas that does not seem to give a damn about the 132 people who have died so far from the Texas floods, folks hurt, people's livelihoods upended, and they should be used in the special session to try to help those families that need help in this moment. Instead, they're using the special session to do everything they can to effectively try to break the law and try to make laws and create crimes. These Texas Democrats aren't breaking the law. They aren't committing any crimes other than standing up for their constituents and refusing to kiss the ring and bend the knee to this would-be authoritarian king. If you look across this administration's um, all the issues that people care about, they are underwater on every single issue, on the issue of dealing with inflation, on the issue of dealing with foreign entanglements. This is a guy who said he's going to end the war in Ukraine on day one. This is a guy who refuses to do effectively anything about the mass starvation that we're seeing take place right now in Gaza. This is somebody who continues to dismantle our foreign relationships when you look at this tariff policy, which is a tax on the American people, but which also puts foreign governments in a position where they don't want to trade and do business with Americans. And what does that mean? It means there are fewer jobs. Because when you think about folks like Canada, just for example, I'll just use Canada because Canada is Pennsylvania's biggest foreign trading partner. And a lot of people don't recognize that a lot of jobs that are Pennsylvania jobs exist because of the strong relationship that we've had with Canada. And so the tariffs that went into effect all across the world and the uncertainty about Canada, about Mexico, and about some of our biggest trading partners puts us in a position where the average American family is going to see a tax increase that could be as at a minimum $2,400 a year. I don't know about the average person watching right now. I don't have an additional $2,400 to pay, and I know my neighbors and constituents don't. But all of those things and more are happening because of this administration. So they're not popular. They're not popular ideas. He has been in a position where only his core base of supporters still support him. He's underwater with independents. The list goes on and on. So instead of doing shit that's more popular, instead of actually trying to work to make people's lives better, they want to rig the game and rig the rules. And it's so funny that for all these years, he's talked about elections being rigged and everything being rigged against him when the rigging was inside of him all along. And now we see these people in Texas and other states who are willing to play along at great risk to our democracy. So I'm just damn proud of my colleagues in Texas who are standing up. And the DNC has been working with Leader Wu and Texas Democrats every step of the way.
Totally agree. And of course, he wants a Nobel Peace Prize for all of that failure. But, you and I mentioned sort of at the outset, I guess I met you for the first time in person last year at the DNC, but I've known you
It's
for
a-
so many years on social media. And I'm curious what you see as the role of social media in pushing back against something like this redistricting battle and sort of just multi-part question. Do you consider yourself an influencer? And is there a main takeaway you think the DNC has from their 2024 influencer strategy? So feel free to jump in on those three questions anywhere.
So listen, I don't think I'm an influencer, but I'm damn grateful to all the folks who have painstakingly built platforms and are helping all of us and helping their neighbors better understand what's happening in the world. I think one of the challenges we have right now is the sophisticated, well funded misinformation, disinformation, and broader media strategy that we see from the Republican side and from the sort of broader conservative ecosystem where they're doing everything they can through threats, intimidation, and through just out and out bribery effectively to silence the voices of people who stand up against this administration, who call out their lunacy, their incompetence, their anti American agenda. Because make no mistake, these are people who claim to love America, but they hate everything that makes America America. They hate the rule of law. They hate free speech. They hate an educated populace. They hate people being able to vote freely. They hate fair elections. They hate everything that makes America America, and yet they talking about making it great again. You can't make something great again that you never gave a damn about in the first place. This is about power, and this is about using power. And they have branded their corruption in a way that has obviously reached many folks many people across the political spectrum. And some people, what it has meant is that it has made them less likely to want to engage, right? Because when you see everything is noisy, when you see everything is nasty, when you see an administration that engages in rank corruption, it makes a lot of people say, well, I don't want to be involved in politics. That's too messy. That's too nasty. That's too whatever. So that's a part of the strategy where you just overwhelm people into submission. The second part of the strategy is to push out blatant lies out into the ecosystem so that people are confused, don't know what to believe. And then the final thing you do is what I sort of spent some time in on the front end is you try to silence people using threats and intimidation. And what I'm so proud of is, influencers like you, folks in independent media have shown a level of backbone that you are not seeing from big corporate entities like CBS, like Paramount, like so many of the others who were one by one bending over backwards to make this administration their friends. And the job of media shouldn't be to be the friend of the White House. The job of media is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. They have absolutely inverted that on its head, where every single day, these people so driven by profit are doing everything they can to twist the truth about this moment and to also not educate the American people to know what's going on in their name. And so as I go around, one of the things that is clear is that, people are paying attention. People are frustrated. But any person, any reasonable person, you're living your life, you're going to work, you're, raising your kids, you're missing things that are happening every single day. It's just too much to keep up with. And so I'm so grateful because great influencers have really help to chip away at this and make people in very small bites be able to digest the craziness and the lunacy. And I think the DNC has engaged in a strategy right now of trying to do a much better job than we did in 2024 of engaging with influencers early on, of talking to influencers with the same respect and with the same frequency that folks sort of seek out, the quote unquote traditional legacy media. And that's certainly been a part of my strategy. You don't have to go on, CNN or Fox News to reach people. In fact, people are coming to hear from you and to hear from so many other people in the ecosystem. And I think the more we engage with you all, I think the better we are going to be with cutting through that three-part misinformation, silencing, and flooding the zone sort of strategy that we've seen from the Republicans.
And I think to your point, I mean, media certainly knew it wasn't their job to be friends with the White House during the Biden administration. So
Yeah,
it's
they made that clear.
pretty
Yeah.
stark contrast to see. I know you are so busy. The last question for you, I think that this is an urgent crisis, this redistricting fight, but
Yeah.
really longer term, I also see it making young voters so much less invested and just truly disaffected by our system, making them want to tune out, making them feel like everything is rigged in a system that already is so far from perfect. And, people talk about the future of the party a lot. I certainly think you are going to be a big part of that future, and you already are. I know a lot of people agree with me. What's your message to young voters who might feel like just checking out at a time like this and it's just too overwhelming for them?
You know what? I've been I'm in the car right now. I'm about to go to an event for a neighborhood in my district called Yorktown. And so Yorktown was a purpose-built community 60 years ago where black folks weren't able to buy homes in certain neighborhoods, right? Particularly in the suburbs. We know about the history, the pervasive history of redlining. And so what those black folks did is they came to the heart of North Philly and built their own community. So why do I sort of tell you that story? I tell you that brief story because I think our history holds a lot of the keys of how we address this moment that certainly is unprecedented. And I think the keys are this. The first thing is that this is not a moment where I think any of us should be waiting on some political leader or some specific individual to come in and save us. I reject this notion that we should be in the business right now of trying to find the next Democratic superhero. I think that is a fool's errand, and I think it's ahistorical. When we think about 60 years ago, not just the building of the Yorktown community, but the folks who showed up on the Edmund Pettus Bridge because in their moment, they wanted to push back against a guy who was saying segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And they marched across that Edmund Pettus Bridge not having a crystal ball, not knowing in advance who were going to be the leaders that we remember, not knowing in advance that the work that they did was going to lead to the passage of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, not knowing how difficult it was going to be from that moment to where we are, and certainly not knowing that a lot of the same rhetoric and demons that they were fighting all those years ago were going to rear their ugly heads very much in the same way. But what it requires of us is to do what they did. Is to show up not because you know an outcome is guaranteed, but you show up because you know there's something worth fighting for.
Truly one of the future leaders of the party. Follow him. One thing I love about Malcolm is he says he's not an influencer. He does have a large following. And I think he has a model where he's doing the work on the ground first. And then, he shares that out. But it's not a obsessively online approach. And I think there's really value in that. So definitely stay tuned for more from Malcolm.